overhead added forlorn hope to our despair. 2 small bombs, accurately placed, could have dislocated the tracks and destroyed the locomotives, but they never came. The sun shone brightly in the clear sky as we were herded into the train. 150 people to each of the waiting cars. And Mengele, the infamous doctor from Auschwitz, hysterical and monstrous, was on hand to give his final blessing, in quotes, to the departing train, with revolver bullets fired indiscriminately at the living souls jammed into the coal cars. Some were lucky enough to die instantly. The unlucky ones suffered the slow agony of bleeding to death, propped upright by the squeezed mass of humanity. Mengele's revolver did a good job. For days, which seemed like decades, there was no room to move even an arm or a leg, much less to sit down. People lived, slept, and died standing. It became a small blessing that the cars had no roofs. Slowly, conditions changed. By the 3rd day, a score of people in our car were dead. They were immediately thrown over the side to make room for the still living. The food, in quotes, situation too, was somewhat alleviated. Falling snow was gathered in a blanket by 4 of us supporting the corners. Everyone received his share. Those with thin containers hid some of the snow against the eventuality that heaven should decide not to send down more of its previous manna. The taste of this snow will always remain on my lips. No food ever tasted better than those fresh, crisp, white snowflakes carefully gathered on an outstretched blanket. When the snow in the car was gone, some managed to pick up more from the ground by tying shoelaces into a long cord and dangling the tin cans outside the train as the train lumbered along. Snow was all the food we had for 6 days, and not even enough of that. On the 7th day, the train ground to a stop in Prague, the capital of Czechoslovakia. The elevated bridge over the railroad tracks was soon crowded with good-hearted Czechs, who, at the risk of their lives, dropped hundreds of loaves of bread and containers filled with water to the human cargo and the open cars below. Braving a hail of bullets from the local German police, the Czechs approached the train from all sides and threw in what supplies they could, including newspapers telling of German defeat. Our guard did not interfere, surely realizing the futility. Here too, not everyone was lucky. The cars nearest the bridge received the lion's share of the generosity of the Czech people. The farther away a man was, the less was his chance of survival. There were some who even refused a slice of bread from a fellow passenger, preferring to die to stop once and for all their dreadful agony. When the train left Prague, no one, not even our guards, knew where we were headed or where the next stop would be. The filth in the cars, of course, was indescribable, the stench getting worse with each passing day. The number of dead climbed constantly. By the 8th day of the journey, 68 had died in our car. The bread I had managed to secure in Prague was gone. It was soon taken from me by the few muscle men, again in quotes, who had the upper hand in every situation, threatening to kill anyone who refused their demands. They were not idle threats. Our sightseeing tour through Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria and Germany had lasted in all 13 days, and when we arrived at the infamous Oranienburg concentration camp some 20 miles east of Berlin, 3/4 of the passengers in this devilishly devised Eichmann-engineered death train reached their final solution en route. The few remaining souls, we were 42 of that we remained alive from the 150 who were boarded the train. The few remaining souls, most of them half-conscious, who had to be carried out from the blood-soaked coal cars, would have preferred to die had they known that still another journey lay ahead. Here again I wrote a long continuation to it, but it was not printed. My belief in God, however, gave me constant strength to withstand the unbearable suffering, always relying on His mercy in those very trying days.
Thank you, Mr. Topel, for reading that to us. Could you tell us, after this train ride, where you came and what happened?
Yes, when they took us out from the trains and brought us into Oranienburg, which was a very short distance away, they put us in again in barracks. We looked for a little bit of water to drink, but again those I don't know how to describe them. The Germans, they prepared some salt water. The water was so salty, specially prepared for us, yeah, that there could end maybe whatever they were not able to do throughout our journey. I tasted just a drop of this water, and I didn't care anymore to drink, although I needed a drink of water. We didn't stay in Oranienburg too long. We stayed about 2 weeks in Oranienburg. From Oranienburg, they put us again on trains. These were already closed cars, and they brought us, after a few days traveling, from outside of Berlin to South Bavaria in Germany, to a concentration camp called Flossenbürg.
Was Oranienburg also in Germany?
Yes, it was about some miles outside of Berlin.
It was.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. We arrived in Flossenbürg, which was again a concentration camp. It also had a crematorium there, but only people who died were burned at the crematorium. The people were not specifically shot there. Whatever I can, some people were shot here and there, but not in large numbers. Flossenbürg was known to be a factory of Messerschmitt planes, of the German attack warplanes. But when we arrived, the operation already died down, although people still worked at the factory of where they produced the Messerschmitt planes. I was assigned to work at a Holzplatz, which was a place where we were sent out to the forest to cut down trees. We cut down the trees, we brought the trees sewn into blocks into the camp, and in the camp we had to cut this wood into small pieces and delivered it into the German barracks it was a very severe cold winter. It was January, beginning of February, where I was in charge, I have to say, they put me in charge to write down how many bundles of wood was sent to this barrack and the other barrack, and this was my, they noticed somehow I have to say, I had a nice handwriting, and one of the SS noticed this when I marked down something, and he said, "You're going to be the one to mark down how many bundles of wood each barrack will receive." The first few weeks, I would say about 3 weeks, I was assigned to a quarantine block. It was a terrible situation where the capos, who were German criminals themselves, they had always the upper hand, and they didn't hesitate to beat and flog us at every possible situation. One day I noticed on the other side, which was also a quarantine block, a group arrived, and I noticed a friend of mine standing barefoot in the deep snow to be counted. I tried to help him. He didn't notice me, I noticed him. I went back into my barrack, and again, at the threat of being shot if found, I took a blanket, I tore it up, and I made a bundle, and I also had